All right, guys, what's going on? So, we're going to talk about good debt versus bad debt. And I'm going to preface this with saying the reason I'm even making this video is because I had like an entire like thought theory process with myself about how this entire financial system is being ran. And like the picture is really starting to like come together for me. And I guess I'm going to try to explain it for y'all real quick. So before I even explain what the good debt versus bad debt stuff means, so the way I'm starting to understand how our financial economy in the financial world runs and has been running for a long time on a very simple level, right? I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. The people who have the power to create money, the people like bankers, etc., people who create loans and credit, debt, by virtue of them creating money, when they create debt, they are, inflation. We've all heard the term inflation before. They're inflating the dollar, right? Now, the problem with this theory and how they can just create money practically out of thin air, because we don't even have a gold based dollar anymore. So when they create these money out of thin air for debt, there are literally, I just thought I saw something, I'm tweaking. There are literally more dollars in circulation, right? So as a result of there being more dollars in circulation, things get more expensive. Again, this is the basic concept of inflation. I'm not saying anything new for y'all. But the problem in this is that the money that you get paid as a worker, you get paid in United States dollars, right? The amount of dollars that you get paid in does not increase. That's what I wrote here, and I'll say that at the end. It does not increase at the same level or the same rate that the increase on prices goes up and the increase on what else did I say? The increase of assets, the prices of assets goes up as well. So basically, all I'm trying to say is that the more people take out consumer debt, which is pretty much why I wanted to talk about good debt versus bad debt, the more that people take out consumer debt and you stay in this trap of having consumer debt over time, the amount of money that you make is never going to increase at the same rate of inflation, nor is it going to increase at the same rate that these assets that people own with good debt is going to increase. So people who have good debt are at the advantage of being able to take advantage of this financial system that is going to continuously go up due to inflation. They're going to always print money out. So that's why I wanted to talk about good debt versus bad debt. Because if you can sort of understand that principle, and I know I really didn't really just make a lot of sense what I just said, but if you can sort of follow me, if you can understand that principle of how this entire economy works, practically debt is money. Like if there was no debt, there would be no money. So you have to sort of learn how that process works if you want to truly get wealthy. There is nobody in this world that has gotten rich without being in debt in some way, but they have good debt. You know what I mean? So good debt. What is good debt? And I'm gonna try to keep this at the simple level for like the average person, not like the business mogul, like a billionaire or something. So good debt, a mortgage. I would say a mortgage is generally a form of good debt because homes hold value long term, especially if you happen to move somewhere that's a nice neighborhood and you buy early. So people who bought homes in like 2020, they've already seen a substantial increase in the amount of equity that they have. So homes are definitely probably the number one form of good debt that consumers can have. Like if you're just an average consumer, in my opinion. I put business loans, but I'm not really too sure that a lot of people will get business loans because that's not really something that is like too common. But you know, I guess generally, if you have a business loan for a profitable business, then you can say that's a form of good debt. And then student loans for a high return on investment degree. So let's say you get a degree. I have my degree in accounting. I would say personally, I mean, I didn't. Luckily, I had a full ride scholarship, so I was able to graduate with zero student loan debt. But even if I did have to pay it back, I would say it was like a good investment because I made good money at a young age. Law, doctor, engineering, any of like the good degrees that we all know about. Taking out loans for lows, and if you are diligent with paying it back, that's a good idea. That could be considered good debt. So I said there are very few examples of good debt as it basically relates to debt held for assets that A, hold value long term, and B, can pay you dividends. So let's say, you have some real estate property or something that you're able to acquire over time. Again, I only got 3 examples here. I'm sure I can go down the list with a few more, but overall, the idea of good debt is that you have this debt that is for assets. The debt is tied to things that are going to hold their value. They're not things that are going to get immediately consumed. Like, my bad, y'all, the phone fell. But like I was saying, it's debt for things that are not going to get immediately consumed, like food and just non-intangible products, I guess. So Excuse me. What are examples of bad debt? Basically the opposite of what I just said. So credit card debt. I highlighted the three things that I always talk about: credit card debt, car loans, student loans. Those are the three things that plague most Americans and most people in general. Like, most people really struggle with basic finances and managing their financial life and having enough money to save. It's very simple because they have debt on these things that are not giving them anything in return. And that, when you look at it like that, when I say it like that, again, I keep reiterating the fact that to me, it's a very simple concept. Having this debt, it ties up your money, and you're basically obligated to, your resources are going to continuously be obligated to somebody else, which in turn makes it hard for you to save your money. You cannot stack money to the side here if you always have to obligate it to somebody else. So it's a very simple statement to say, but yet our financial system preys on people at a very young age, and that's how you fall into this trap. Not only that, it's not even just like the financial system is preying on us, because so what they're preying on us. We have to just be more literate. We have to try to just emphasize financial literacy to understand this. So being in credit card debt, you're stuck. People don't even, low credit scores, it's hard to qualify for a home. It's hard to qualify for, even if you wanted to get a form of good debt. If you have a lot of bad debt, you're going to have a poor credit score, which makes it even harder to get forms of good debt. So the whole system works against you. Once you get into this territory of having bad debt, then it's very hard to get back into the territory of having good debt. Car loans, I sort of feel like car loans are a bit in the middle, because people need cars nowadays. It's not really fair to say, especially with how expensive they are, that you can just buy a car cash. So you have to just be smart about that. I think car loans are one of those things, like, if you're going to have a car loan, okay, that's one thing to do, but you have to try to be as smart as possible about it. Make sure it fits in your budget. Buy now, pay later. I don't even have to explain that. That's just pure idiocy. People who are using that for purchases, for clothes and stuff. Come on now. Vacations, buy now, pay later. That's not the wave. And then student loans for useless degrees. It's the same thing. If you, let's say I said, I have my degree in accounting. Let's say you get a degree in, let's just say general business. Like, I was actually a business major freshman year, and I changed my degree because I did not want to have something as broad and general as business, right? But overall, a business degree, especially nowadays, just a basic 4-year business degree, it's if you go to a private school, student loans for degrees like that are just pretty much not worth it. So overall, I think it's like the exact opposite of what I said in terms of degrees that are profitable and can give you a return over time. Degrees for areas that just don't have long-term value, especially in today's economy. If you're going to go to school and take out a student loan that's pretty large, you should make sure what you're going to school for, you can actually get a job for that will pay you something that you can pay back the student loan with, And I'm going to finish it with this. Pretty much what I said in the very beginning, how I tried to explain my hypothesis or whatnot to simplify how our financial system works. Most people only have consumer debt. And because wages will never increase at the rate inflation causes prices, for one, along with the value of assets held by those with good debt to increase, the average consumer holder is stuck forever. And that's what I tried to explain in the very beginning. And I know I'm making it sound as complicated as possible, but y'all, it's very simple. The people who have the assets, they have debt on these assets. Okay, I'm always talking about avoid debt. Let's say how they don't avoid debt, but they take out debt on things that actually will hold value. And over time, as a result of how the entire money system in our world works, they're going to keep printing money. So the value of the dollar is going to go down over time, but not the asset. Assets hold value because it's a physical good. The physical good is not going anywhere. Whereas the dollars that are tied to this debt going down over time. So if I'm making sense, it's a trap. Once you get into this cycle of having bad debt, it makes it very hard for you to acquire assets, even with debt, that can potentially hold value for you over time and increase your net worth. And that's how people become millionaires. You increase your net worth by holding assets over time, not credit card debt. It's not an asset. It takes your income. That's it. So, as always, I'm out.